I want to invite you, just for the next few moments, to let go of what you think is real. Because today, I'm going to ask you to entertain the idea that you are far more powerful than you've been led to believe. I'm going to ask you to consider that within you exists a divine intelligence, always available, always guiding, and that when you allow this intelligence, this God, force, to lead you every day, you align yourself with miracles. Now, when I say God, I'm not speaking of something outside of you, watching you from the clouds. I'm talking about the infinite, organizing intelligence that breathes life into you. The field of consciousness that knows exactly how to turn a seed into a tree, how to make your heart beat 100 zeros, 0 times a day without your permission. This intelligence is God, and it's wired into your biology. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you were truly still? Still enough to hear the whisper behind the noise? That's where God speaks. Not in the chaos of your fears, your schedules, your identities, but in the quiet space between thoughts. In the place where your soul remembers what your ego has forgotten. You see, most people wake up and immediately relive their past. They think the same thoughts, they feel the same emotions, they repeat the same behaviors. And then they wonder why life feels stuck, stale, or out of sync. But when you consciously choose to allow God to lead you, something changes. You shift from living by cause and effect to causing an effect. This is not just spiritual talk, it's biology. When you open your heart, when you trust in divine timing, when you surrender the illusion of control, your brain rewires, your heart rhythm synchronizes, your body chemistry changes. You step into a state of coherence, and in that state, you are no longer matter trying to change matter. You are energy aligning with a higher frequency, and when you live from that space, that elevated state of being, miracles stop being rare. They become your new normal. You get the call you weren't expecting, the diagnosis reverses, the right person walks into your life, the opportunity you've been praying for shows up when you least expect it, and you're finally ready for it. Why? Because you surrendered your timeline, you allowed God to lead. Now here's the paradox. Allowing doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean you sit around waiting for signs. Allowing is active surrender. It's a heart posture. It's saying, I may not know the path, but I trust the one who created it. That trust opens the door to intuitive guidance, and intuition is not a mystery. It's the language of the divine. When your nervous system is regulated and your mind is tuned to higher consciousness, you begin to feel your way through life, rather than think your way through it. And that, my friends, is when things begin to align. Let me be clear, living in divine guidance is not about perfection. It's not about never being afraid. It's about learning to recognize fear and choosing not to be led by it. It's about knowing that when things fall apart, they might actually be falling together. Because a life led by God is not always the easiest, but it is always the most meaningful. So today, I'm inviting you to do something radical. I'm inviting you to stop trying to control everything, and instead to tune in. Be still, breathe, close your eyes if you need to. Feel the intelligence within your chest that never stopped loving you, even when you forgot it was there. Make a decision that from this day forward you will start your mornings in alignment, not with your to-do list, not with the news, not with your inbox, but with the Spirit of God moving through you. Ask, what would you have me do today? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And then listen. Listen like your life depends on it, because it does. And the more you follow that voice, the more you let go of resistance, the more your outer world begins to match your inner knowing. This is not magic. This is alignment. This is divine order. This is what happens when you allow God to lead you every single day, and that, my friends, is where the miracles live. You are connected to divine intelligence at all times. This isn't a metaphor, it's a biological and energetic truth. Within every cell of your body exists a blueprint encoded with unimaginable intelligence. This same intelligence causes a heart to beat, wounds to heal, and thoughts to form from the quantum field of possibility. What we often call God isn't separate from us. It's the field we live in, breathe in, and are made of. It permeates every atom of existence. You're not just a physical body reacting to the world around you. You are a conscious, energetic being interacting with an infinite, creative intelligence. Science now tells us that the electromagnetic field of the heart is more powerful than that of the brain. It's measurable, it's real, and it expands beyond the body. This field doesn't just emit energy, it receives and responds. When you're in a state of gratitude, love, or deep trust, you are in resonance with this field. That resonance is alignment, and in that state, you're not praying asterisk to asterisk God as though it's somewhere else. You're communicating asterisk with asterisk God from within the very fabric of your being. The problem is, we've been conditioned to believe that God is only available in crisis, or only accessed through religion, ritual, or rules. But divine intelligence doesn't wait for you to be perfect. It's always present. The moment you become aware of that connection, even for a second, you begin to change your internal state. That's when the brain reorganizes, the body recalibrates, and the spirit awakens. The divine is not far away. It's closer than your breath, pulsing behind your thoughts, waiting not for your perfection but for your permission. It's available to guide you, not sometimes, not only when you're desperate, but always. Stillness is the gateway to hearing God's guidance. In a world addicted to speed, noise, and constant stimulation, the subtle voice of divine intelligence is easily drowned out. Guidance doesn't compete with chaos, it whispers beneath it. You cannot hear the direction of spirit while your mind is cluttered with overthinking, fear loops, or the mental static of past regrets and future anxieties. Stillness isn't just quiet, it's an intentional dropping beneath the surface of thought into presence. It's a shift from doing to being, from effort to awareness, and in that awareness, divine clarity begins to rise. The brain operates in various frequencies, and when you're constantly in beta, alert, reactive, busy, you remain in survival mode. But when you enter stillness, your brain slows into alpha and theta states, which open the door to inner wisdom, insight, and intuitive reception. This is where inspiration flows. This is where you begin to feel guided, not by logic alone, but by a higher knowing that bypasses the linear mind. Stillness aligns the body, calms the nervous system, and expands your energetic field into coherence. It's not escapism, it's access. In that space, you become receptive. You stop telling God what you need and start listening to what is already being revealed. Most of us want answers, signs, direction, but we don't slow down enough to receive them. We check our phones before we check in with our soul. But God speaks in subtle ways, in images, sensations, spontaneous thoughts that seem to come from nowhere. Those are not accidents, they are answers. Stillness creates the internal conditions for the miraculous to emerge. It is a practice, not a personality trait. Anyone can cultivate it. And the more you return to it, the more familiar the voice of divine intelligence becomes. Most people live by the past. True change requires presence. The moment you wake up in the morning, your brain retrieves memories, emotions, and familiar routines from the day before. Without realizing it, you become a living reflection of your history. You think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and behave in the same patterns. Your body becomes a predictable, programmed machine, running yesterday's software. And yet, deep inside, you crave transformation, newness, a breakthrough. But nothing truly new can emerge while your mind is anchored in what has already been. The past is stored in your body as emotional memory. Every time you recall a painful event or rehearse a limiting belief, you reinforce neural pathways and emotional signatures tied to an old identity. You may say you want change, but as long as your attention is fixated on the familiar, what happened, what didn't happen, who hurt you, or what you fear, you unconsciously create more of the same. This is how people stay stuck, by reliving past experiences and expecting future miracles. Presence, however, is where possibility lives. When you shift your attention to the now, you interrupt the signal of the past. The body no longer runs on old emotional programs. The mind no longer replays outdated stories. In presence, the brain begins to reorganize and adapt, making space for new choices, You're no longer drawing your identity from memory, you're creating it from consciousness. This is the beginning of true transformation. In presence, you gain access to divine guidance because you are finally available to it. You become aware of synchronicities, subtle nudges, and inner prompts that don't come from your past, but from higher intelligence. The more you return to the present moment, the more power you reclaim from your conditioned self. Surrendering control invites divine order. Control is the ego's attempt to feel safe in an unpredictable world. It thrives on planning, predicting, and micromanaging outcomes to avoid uncertainty. But the truth is, the more tightly you grip your reality, the more resistance you create. Control narrows your perception and locks you into linear thinking, where only what is known feels possible. Yet the miraculous lives outside of what you already know. It requires space that control cannot allow. What we often call problems are not always obstacles. They are invitations to surrender, to release the illusion that you must hold everything together on your own. Divine order operates in a dimension far beyond the intellect. It's not chaotic, it's not random, it's deeply intelligent, perfectly timed, and infinitely creative. But it doesn't respond to force, it responds to flow. When you surrender, not as a sign of weakness, but as a gesture of trust, you align yourself with that order. You allow outcomes to unfold that the logical mind could never predict or manufacture. This is not passive resignation, it's an active willingness to stop resisting the unknown. When you surrender control, you open to higher intelligence. You invite clarity, direction, and resolution that are often delayed only because of your insistence on figuring everything out yourself. Surrender shifts your frequency from fear to faith, from pressure to presence. In that shift, doors open that you never saw and paths clear that you thought were blocked. The energy you once used to push now fuels peace. The divine doesn't need you to force results. It needs you to yield to the greater pattern unfolding. What seems like a delay may be divine timing. What feels like a detour may be a redirection towards something more aligned. Coherence between heart and brain activates spiritual alignment. Your heart is more than a physical pump, it's an intelligent sensory organ with its own neural network, capable of sending signals to the brain that influence perception, emotion, and decision-making. When your heart and brain are out of sync, your inner world is fragmented. You feel scattered, reactive, anxious. Thoughts move in one direction while feelings pull in another, creating internal dissonance. But when your heart and brain are in coherence, they operate as a unified field, creating harmony in your body and clarity in your mind. This state of coherence is measurable, real, and powerful. Emotions like gratitude, love, and compassion produce coherent heart rhythms. These rhythms send stabilizing signals to the brain, quieting stress responses and activating the prefrontal cortex, the seat of intuition, foresight, and spiritual perception. In this state, you become more than a reactive being, you become a conscious creator. Your nervous system calms, your energy becomes centered, and your ability to perceive divine guidance becomes heightened. You shift from survival mode into creation mode, where spiritual insight is no longer a rare experience but a daily reality. Spiritual alignment doesn't require withdrawal from the world. It begins with tuning the inner instruments of your body, primarily the heart and brain, into a state of cooperation. That inner balance creates a field of energy around you that influences not only your health but your interactions, your choices, and the circumstances that find you. Coherence amplifies your signal to the divine field, making your intentions clearer and your connection to higher intelligence stronger. You're not just thinking about change, you're embodying it. You're no longer separated from divine intelligence, you're in rhythm with it. In this state, answers come faster, solutions arise with ease, and life begins to mirror your inner harmony. Miracles are natural outcomes of divine connection. They are not anomalies, not supernatural events reserved for the select few, but the byproduct of a life lived in alignment with higher intelligence. When you're connected to the divine, You step out of the reactive patterns of the ego and into the responsive flow of the spirit. In this space, life becomes less about forcing outcomes and more about recognizing the intelligence that is always orchestrating events in your favor. Miracles are what happen when you stop trying to control everything and start trusting the invisible rhythm of life moving through you. Your connection to the divine is not something you earn, it's something you remember. It's always been there, beneath the noise of your thoughts, behind the veil of fear and doubt. When you reconnect to it, through stillness, surrender, and coherence, you return to your natural state. And in that state, you don't chase miracles, you attract them. They become the natural extension of your alignment, the evidence of your trust, and the expression of a field that always responds to intention, vibration, and emotion. This is not wishful thinking, it is energetic law. You broadcast signals with your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. When those signals are chaotic or fear-based, you align with outcomes that match that frequency. But when you are clear, elevated, and grounded in love or gratitude, the field around you begins to respond with opportunities, synchronicities, and breakthroughs that feel like miracles. These aren't accidents. They are confirmations that the divine is not only real but responsive. Living in divine connection doesn't eliminate challenges, but it transforms your experience of them. It turns delays into divine timing, detours into new paths, and obstacles into catalysts. You begin to see that miracles are not interruptions of the natural order, they are the natural order revealed. Allowing God to lead is an act of courageous trust. It means letting go of your conditioned need to have all the answers, to map out every step, to predict every outcome before taking action. The mind, trained by years of survival thinking, demands certainty and control. It wants to know the how, the when, the why. But divine guidance doesn't always arrive with instructions. Often, it shows up as a quiet knowing, an inner nudge, a pull towards something unfamiliar but deeply resonant. Trusting that pull requires courage, the courage to follow a path before it's fully visible. Courageous trust is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to move forward despite it. It's a shift from relying solely on logic to honoring a higher intelligence that often speaks in symbols, synchronicities, and subtle redirections. This kind of trust is radical in a world obsessed with strategy, metrics, and guarantees. It asks you to be still when everything in you wants to rush. It asks you to act when everything around you says wait. It challenges your ego, stretches your faith, and awakens your spiritual perception. When you choose to let God lead, you stop seeking validation from external circumstances. You begin to develop a relationship with the unknown. A space that once triggered fear now becomes a sacred container for possibility. Life doesn't become easier, but it becomes deeply meaningful. You find strength not from your plans, but from your presence. You begin to notice the divine weaving through even the smallest moments, revealing patterns and purpose you could never have orchestrated on your own. This kind of trust is built in quiet repetition, in morning silence, in moments of surrender, in daily choices that align you not with your preferences, but with your purpose. Intuition is the language of divine intelligence. It is not a random feeling or a fleeting thought, but a direct transmission from a higher source, communicated through the body, the heart, and the subtle awareness that exists beyond logic. Unlike the loud and often chaotic voice of the analytical mind, intuition speaks softly, clearly, and without emotional turbulence. It arises as a knowing that doesn't require proof, a feeling that something is either right or not, even if there's no visible evidence to support it. This is the way divine intelligence guides us, through inner impressions that bypass mental filters and connect us directly to truth. Most people ignore their intuition because it doesn't always align with what is familiar or comfortable. It may ask you to let go of something safe, to walk away from something that looks good on paper, or to trust a direction that seems illogical. But intuition is never about comfort, it's about alignment. It moves you in harmony with your highest path, even when the steps don't make sense to the rational mind. Learning to listen to it is not a mystical gift. It is a skill that is developed through practice, stillness, and self-trust. When you begin to honor your intuitive impulses, you stop outsourcing your decisions to fear, past experiences, or external advice. You become more attuned to the voice of the divine moving within you, guiding you not from outside circumstances, but from your inner compass. This is where divine timing, effortless opportunities, and synchronistic encounters begin to multiply. Intuition is the divine speaking in your native energetic frequency, and the more you quiet the noise, the more clearly you hear it. Following it is not always easy, but it is always aligned with a higher order that your soul already recognizes. Daily alignment creates a life of purpose and flow. Alignment is not something that happens once during a break, through moment, or a weekend retreat. It is a daily devotion to living from your highest self. Each day offers a new opportunity to choose presence over distraction, intention over reaction, and surrender over control. When you begin your day by tuning into divine intelligence, even for a few quiet minutes, you set the tone for everything that follows. Your nervous system regulates, your thoughts gain clarity, and your emotional state becomes a magnet for the experiences that resonate with your inner state. Living in daily alignment means consistently returning to the awareness that you are not separate from the divine, that guidance is always available, and that your choices carry energetic weight. It's not about striving for perfection, but about realigning every time you drift. Just like a compass gently reorients toward true north, your inner being knows how to return to coherence, to peace, to trust. When you build that habit of checking in, of asking for guidance, of choosing faith over fear, you create a life that flows rather than fights. This flow is not passive, it's deeply intentional. It means you respond to life from a place of grounded spiritual awareness rather than emotional reactivity. You begin to notice that the right opportunities come not through force but through alignment. Conversations deepen, decisions become easier, and you find yourself in the right place at the right time more often. Daily alignment strengthens your connection to purpose, and that purpose becomes the lens through which you see the world. It's not something you chase, it's something you embody. When alignment becomes a daily practice, your outer world reflects the harmony of your inner world, and life begins to unfold with greater grace and precision. Miracles live on the other side of surrender. As long as you are gripping tightly to outcomes, managing every detail, and trying to force life into your expectations, you are operating from limitation. Control creates friction. It closes doors that divine intelligence is trying to open. Surrender, on the other hand, is not about giving up. It's about letting go of the illusion that you must do everything on your own. It's a conscious act of trust, a moment of release where you allow the divine to take the lead and guide you towards something greater than you can imagine from your current perspective. Surrender creates space. It allows new possibilities to enter, ones that the analytical mind could never calculate or predict. In the stillness that follows surrender, your intuition becomes louder, your energy softens, and your awareness expands. The resistance dissolves, and suddenly the path becomes clearer. Miracles don't require effort in the traditional sense. They require openness. They need you to be available, not perfect. They need you to say yes to what you cannot yet see but deeply sense. The moment you surrender is the moment the frequency of your being shifts. You move out of fear and into trust, out of striving and into allowing. This shift changes what you attract, what you notice, and how the universe responds to you. Surrender is the doorway to grace. It positions you in a state where divine timing, synchronicity, and transformation can occur effortlessly. What once seemed impossible becomes inevitable, not because you pushed harder, but because you aligned more deeply. Living in surrender is not about passivity, it's about conscious yielding. It's about knowing when to act and when to release. It's about letting your spirit lead instead of your survival mind. It's here that miracles begin to unfold naturally and abundantly.